No, I can't.
You're useless, you know that.
Salted. Chef Ramsay has seen enough.
We all love seeing chefs rise to the occasion, but if there's one thing Hell's Kitchen fans enjoy just as much, it's watching a disaster. Every season promises intense pressure, arguments, and meltdowns, but sometimes the real drama happens during dinner service. From endless mistakes to kitchen shutdowns, these disasters have become part of Hell's Kitchen history. So, which dinner services were the absolute worst? Let's count down the 10 worst dinner services in Hell's Kitchen ever, where the kitchens didn't just struggle, they completely fell apart. Number 10, Season 1. What better way to begin this list than with the very first dinner service in Hell's Kitchen history? From the second the doors opened, everything went wrong. Chefs forgot orders, food came out badly cooked, and both kitchens looked completely lost. On the red team, almost everyone made mistakes, while on the blue side, Ralph was one of the few chefs who seemed to know what he was doing. As the errors kept coming, customers were left waiting longer and longer for their meals. Some couldn't take it anymore and walked out. What should have been a simple opening night quickly turned into a nightmare. This was the service that introduced viewers to Gordon Ramsay's legendary rage. With mistake after mistake piling up, Ramsay finally had enough. After hours of chaos, he shut the entire kitchen down. The first service in Hell's Kitchen history wasn't just bad, it was a complete wreck, and it set the standard for every disaster that followed. Number 9, Season 2. Season 2 gave us one of those services where you just sit back and wonder, how is it getting worse every minute? Seriously, almost nobody had a good night here. While a couple of chefs managed to stay out of trouble, everyone else seemed determined to make as many mistakes as possible. The red team was especially bad. They couldn't get on the same page, dishes kept coming back, and every bit of progress was followed by another disaster. What really makes this service memorable is how nobody could get out of their own way. The chefs weren't just struggling against the dinner rush, they were practically creating new problems for themselves. Every station seemed to be falling apart at the same time. By the end of the night, Ramsay had completely lost patience. Usually, one team manages to scrape by and earn a win. Not this time. The service was such a disaster that Ramsay named both teams losers, a first for the show. When nobody deserves to win, you know you've witnessed a truly awful dinner service. Number 8, Season 4. For Season 4, the choice is pretty easy. Episode 3 was an absolute disaster from start to finish. What's crazy is that the problem started before dinner service had even begun. A simple but costly mistake immediately put the kitchen on the back foot, and from there things only got worse. Every time the chefs had a chance to recover, another mistake popped up. Becked raw food, overcooked food, poor communication, you name it, this service had it. The biggest issue was that nobody seemed able to learn from their mistakes. Ramsay would point out a problem, only for the same thing to happen again a few minutes later. As the errors kept piling up, Ramsay became more and more frustrated and did the impossible. He completely lost patience, calling out the team's performance and making it clear that this was nowhere near the standard he expected. Some bad services have one major disaster. This one was different. It was a pile of mistakes that never seemed to end, making it one of the most painful services of the season to watch. Number 7, Season 8. Season 8 had plenty of terrible services, but Episode 4 was on another level. The blue team completely fell apart. This one chef had an especially awful night, but honestly, almost everyone was making mistakes. Orders were getting messed up, communication was a disaster, and nobody seemed to know what was going on. The crazy part is that this was supposed to be a fresh start for the team. Instead, they somehow looked worse than before. The red team wasn't exactly shining either. They had their own mistakes and struggles, but at least they managed to keep service moving. Then came the moment that really makes this service stand out. Ramsay brought the red team over to help the blue team finish service. Usually, that's enough to get things back on track, but not this time. Even with both teams working together, the kitchen was still a mess. Ramsay finally realized nobody was getting the job done and kicked everyone out. Imagine needing two teams to finish one service and still failing. That's what makes this one of the biggest disasters in Hell's Kitchen history. Number 6, Season 10. Season 10 is famous for one thing: chefs getting kicked out of service. And while there are a couple of contenders, Episode 5 easily stands out as the worst. This service started to get messed up almost immediately. Before the kitchen could even find its rhythm, chefs were already arguing, making careless mistakes, and refusing to take responsibility. Instead of fixing problems, people were too busy blaming each other. And then came the kickouts. Raw food, repeated mistakes, and chefs making the exact same errors after being warned sent him over the edge. Every few minutes, another contestant was being shown the door. The craziest part? More than half of the chefs didn't even make it to the end of service. Think about that. Out of 14 chefs, 8 were kicked out before the night was over. At some point, it stopped feeling like a dinner service. By the end, only a handful of chefs were still standing, and Ramsay called the whole night an absolute disgrace. If there was ever a service that showed just how bad Season 10 could get, this was it. Number 5. Season 21. Season 21 was actually filled with strong dinner services, which makes this disaster stand out even more. At the final 14, both teams completely fell apart. The blue team couldn't get anything going. Multiple stations were struggling at the same time, and mistakes kept coming from all directions. Meat was wrong, fish was wrong, and every attempt to recover seemed to create another problem. Meanwhile, the red team wasn't doing much better. What makes this service so shocking is that these weren't supposed to be weak chefs, yet somehow both teams looked completely lost. Talk about bad timing. Raw food, cold food, constant mistakes, and zero momentum. Ramsay eventually reached his limit and started throwing chefs out one after another until both teams were gone. It wasn't just bad, it was the kind of meltdown you never expected from a cast this talented, which is exactly why it lands at number 5 on this list. Number 4. Season 13. By this point in Season 13, the weaker chefs were already gone, so you'd expect dinner services to start getting smoother. Instead, Episode 7 proved that wasn't the case at all. The blue team somehow managed to finish service, but it wasn't pretty at all. Most of them had rough nights, making careless mistakes and slowing the kitchen down. But the real disaster happened on the red side. One of the team's strongest chefs had an unusually bad night, and that mistake created a domino effect across the entire kitchen. Suddenly, everyone seemed to be struggling. Communication broke down, confidence disappeared, and mistakes started piling up. The final straw came when undercooked food reached Ramsay. At that point, he'd seen enough. Before long, the entire team was kicked out of the kitchen. This wasn't the most chaotic service ever, but it was one of the most shocking. Because by this stage of the competition, these chefs should have known better. Instead, they delivered one of the season's biggest disasters. Number 3. Season 15. Season 15 had some bad services, but Episode 5 was an absolute train wreck. The night is best remembered for one of the coldest moments in Hell's Kitchen history. A chef getting eliminated right in the middle of service. Usually, something like that wakes the rest of the team up and gets them focused. Not this time. Even after watching a teammate get sent home, the blue team kept making mistakes. Food came back, communication was poor, and the kitchen never recovered. Instead of using the elimination as motivation, they completely fell apart and ended up getting kicked out. The red team wasn't much better. Communication was all over the place. Chefs weren't listening to each other, and mistakes kept piling up. The final blow came when raw food reached Ramsay, instantly ending any chance of saving the service. A mid-service elimination, constant warnings, repeated mistakes, and still the kitchens kept crashing. By the end, Ramsay was so frustrated that he even considered eliminating 3 chefs in one night. Honestly, after watching this disaster unfold, it's hard to argue with him. Number 2. Season 16. By the time Season 16 reached its final 10 chefs, you'd expect the competition to be getting serious. The weaker chefs were gone, the standards were higher, and dinner services should have been running much smoother. Instead, we got one of the worst services of the entire season. To be fair, there wasn't one massive meltdown that stole the show. It was just mistake after mistake from almost everyone. Overcooked food, slow service, poor communication, and chefs repeating errors they'd already been warned about. It felt like nobody wanted to take control. What makes this service so bad is when it happened. This wasn't opening night. This wasn't early in the competition. This was halfway, and more than half the remaining chefs were still making basic mistakes. The night ended with a double elimination, which tells you everything you need to know about how badly things went. For a season already known for having one of the weakest casts in Hell's Kitchen history, this service was the perfect example of why. By the final 10, the chefs should have been getting better. Instead, they somehow looked worse. Number 1. Season 12. Some dinner services are bad and some are disastrous, but Season 12's opening night belongs in a category of its own. Why? Because not a single dish made it out of the kitchen. Think about that for a second. 20 professional chefs walked into Hell's Kitchen, and after an entire dinner service, they couldn't get one entree to a customer. Not one. An hour into service, the only things reaching the tables were bread and Caesar salads prepared outside the kitchen. Meanwhile, inside, it was complete chaos. Raw food, communication breakdowns, and mistake after mistake brought both kitchens to a standstill. Every time it looked like a team might finally get something out, another disaster popped up. Ramsay's frustration kept building until he simply couldn't take it anymore. And honestly, who could blame him? Opening night is supposed to show potential. Instead, this service showed absolutely nothing. No leadership, no teamwork, and most importantly, no food. To this day, it's still one of the most shocking services in Hell's Kitchen history. 20 chefs, 0 dishes served. That's almost impossible to believe. If you enjoyed the video, drop a comment telling us which Hell's Kitchen dinner service you think was the absolute worst of all time. And don't forget to subscribe for more kitchen disasters, legendary meltdowns, and Gordon Ramsay chaos.